This episode is brought to you by Dime Media. Love supporting local, but looking to save? I've got the solution. Introducing the 2025 CNY Women's Network Members Card. This is your passport to exclusive year-round savings at over 35 amazing women-owned businesses across Central New York. Whether you're grabbing coffee, booking a spa day, or shopping a local boutique, using your members card means more than just discounts. You're empowering women, strengthening small businesses, and building a thriving community one purchase at a time. Want to see all the offers and partner spots? Head to cnywomensnetwork.com/members-card or click the link in our bio. And here's the best part. Join the collective by CNY Women's Network and you'll get your members card free with your annual membership. More details at cnywomensnetwork.com/membership. Let's grow together, one card, one connection, one business at a time. Welcome back to Cultivate CNY. I'm your host, Alex Canavan, and today we're joined by Rob Simpson, president of CenterState CEO, the leading nonprofit organization driving inclusive and sustainable economic growth across Central New York. Through his leadership, Rob has helped shape a vision for a stronger, more connected regional economy, one rooted in innovation, collaboration, and opportunity for all. From guiding major development initiatives to fostering partnerships that help businesses and communities thrive, his impact can be felt across the region. In this episode, we talk about the development of the INSPYRE Innovation Hub, a transformative project fueling entrepreneurship and creativity in Syracuse's urban core. Rob also opens up about his recent sabbatical, sharing how stepping back has allowed him to recharge, reflect, and return with renewed purpose, and why prioritizing self-care and balance is essential for sustainable leadership. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Rob Simpson, welcome to Cultivate CNY.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
It's great to be back. If you're listening to this and you didn't catch part one, go back and listen to it. We dove deep into your journey and just your career, you as a person, but we're going to do a nice long intro so people will know exactly who you are.
Goody.
We don't need to talk too much. We can talk about where you're at today. Particularly, we're going to be talking about your recent sabbatical that you took, which was a leap of faith in a way for yourself. And then I also would love to touch on the INSPYRE Innovation Hub all the cool things happening over there. All of your LinkedIn posts are fantastic. What is your strategy behind that? Is it really just intuitive sharing, or do you have, certain topics you want to talk about?
There's no plan when I get on LinkedIn. It's usually, if you notice, there's a little bit of a cadence. A lot of times I'll post at the end of a week, right? On a Friday night when I've had a chance to decompress, think a little bit about what we've accomplished during the course of a week, think about maybe what's ahead, think about something that feels important to share with stakeholders. But no, there's not a planned strategy per se. I think a lot of it comes from just intuition and feeling a sense of what message needs to be out there in the community for us to continue to move ourselves forward. I love to write, but social media is not something that I do outside of LinkedIn. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. I'm not on Twitter or X. I never have been. So LinkedIn is really the platform that I use to share things that are a little bit less curated from a professional standpoint and a little bit more just me.
And your recent post that you shared right after the Economic Champions Awards, that really struck me. Like I said, I've seen so many of your posts before, but this one was very different. You really opened up about your recent sabbatical, why you took it, what you realized throughout that process. And I'm sure that there were so many people. I mean, I saw how much engagement you got on it because it was just so real and so honest. And for someone who holds the position that you have in this community, I'm sure it wasn't easy to say you needed a break. So do you remember the moment where you realized that it was time to take some time off for yourself?
Yeah, very specifically. Back in the summer of 2024, coming off of COVID, coming off of all the Micron recruitment effort, coming off of all the work we've been doing since then to try to get ready for Micron and support our existing employers here in the market for this moment of growth that we have, I was struggling. I was struggling with things that I couldn't really understand. I felt like my body was breaking down. I felt like my reserve of patience was gone. And over the course of a month, I had just a succession of increasingly worse panic attacks that culminated in me honestly having one at 2:30 in the morning um, that was terrible. It was terrifying. I was scared for what my body was doing to me. And somewhere after that happened, maybe the next morning, sort of looking yourself in the mirror and just saying, yeah, this is something I'm doing is not working and I have to do something different. And started a conversation at that point with my board chair about the fact that I needed some time off. And he's like, yeah, yeah, go ahead, take 2 weeks. And I was like, that's not really what I'm talking about. And the conversation became a little bit more involved. And not surprising, it wasn't just about me taking time off, but how do we make sure that the organization has all the tools and the leadership that it needs to continue doing the important work that it does. And I'm so grateful for the support that I ultimately got from our executive committee, our board, and from our entire team at CenterState CEO, because without it, I don't think that I would have been able to take that time off. And the change that I have felt and experienced on a human level from being able to disengage and let the constant stress go for an extended period of time has been so profound for me that I honestly don't know where I'd be right now if I hadn't had that opportunity. So super, super grateful.
Was it scary at first, the idea of like having to release and let go of control or just simply not control, but responsibility, you know? I'm sure that you were worried about everybody, but luckily you do have a fantastic team that was able to step up and, take that stuff off your
Yeah,
shoulders.
someone asked me the other day, they're like, what was it like that first like week or two? And was it hard to let go? Were you thinking about work? Were you tempted to check in? And the God's honest truth is I wasn't. I wasn't worried about a thing because I had total confidence in our team. I also very intuitively knew that this was an opportunity, a very unique opportunity that I've been afforded that I was never going to get again.
Mhm.
And that I needed to really make it count for myself, not for anybody else, but just for myself. And so, first thing I did on my sabbatical is I got out in the woods. I did an 18.5 mile hike. I climbed Mount Marcy up in the Adirondacks. And yeah, I was on my own. It was a magical day. It was gorgeous. It happened to be my 49th birthday. Blue skies, great weather, and I spent somewhere on the order of 9 or 10 hours in the woods doing things I love. And then the next day and the day after that, I got out and I did more things like that. And so no, I wasn't. Once I made the decision to let go, I was completely at peace with it. I never second guessed it. And truly and honestly, I did not check in with work a single time in 3 months. I was gone. I think I've told this story a couple times. I took my work phone, I turned it off, I put it in my desk drawer, dropped my key fob behind it, and I walked away. And honestly, that approach to it was what I needed. It was the best thing because it was basically giving myself permission to drop the responsibility and just be a human for a little while.
Yeah, you kind of needed to close that box and go away for a while, right? And then it can always be reopened.
Yeah, I think I described it to a lot of people when I was first talking about needing to take time off as really wanting to let go of the sense of constant responsibility for the things that are happening around our organization, inside our organization, with partners around the community and the region. I'm sure there's a lot of that that's tied up in ego to some extent too, but those are real pressures that I felt for a long time. I've been doing this for 22 years, and I love the work, and I think about every one of our members and our companies and our partners. Those relationships are deeply personal to me, and the work that we're doing is deeply personal, right? It impacts the lives of people here in Central New York, and so just feeling as if it was okay to put that aside, knowing it was going to be well cared to, and go off and do something for myself was really the great revelation. And the biggest takeaway was just how healthy that was for me.
And so you mentioned peace, but what were some of the other words or feelings that came up for you during that nice quiet period?
Joy, a lot of joy, and that was. not something that I don't know if I didn't anticipate it, but I found myself, I don't know, halfway through my trip, I found myself like just seeing something beautiful and just smiling, and, like, almost giggling. I was so happy to, like, be in a new place, looking at a new park, like, "Oh, there's the Grand Tetons. How incredible is that?" And that sense of sort of awe and wonder and discovery is something that's always been a part of my life. When I was a young kid, I had the opportunity to live overseas for a couple of years before I was 12 and traveled large portions of the world with my family, and I was constantly being exposed to new things, new foods, new places, new languages, new cultures. And in the last 5 years, I really didn't do as much of that as I am used to in my life. And I paid a real personal price. And I think that's like one of the lessons in one of my journals is like, you got to get out, you got to see things. Like, don't stay stuck in one place for extended periods of time. Make the time to get out and recharge that sense of discovery. Yeah. So although there's a lot of words in there, but it started with joy.
How has your purpose changed since this experience?
I still feel the same passion for the job and the work as I always have, and maybe even at a different level. Like I feel even more deeply rooted to the human impact of the work that we do. I've always brought a lens that economic development isn't just about the economy, which happens at this macro level, right? We talk about global economy and tariffs and globalization, and but humans, you and me, we experience the economy very differently. It's like, do we have money in our pocket to go to the grocery store, or what does our neighborhood look like when we walk outside? But I think coming back, I have this even greater appreciation for the human experience, having gone through a pretty tough one on my own, from my own right, and wanting to even more be a part of helping to improve the lives of people here. So I also think I have a much greater appreciation for the pace that we sometimes operate at. Now, not just inside CenterState CEO, but like all driven professionals, right? And how important that balance is. We hear people talk about it all the time. And, I don't think I was dismissive of it. I'm certainly aware of it, but I have a whole new appreciation for it today.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're still putting in the hours and putting in the work. You're back to work now,
Hmm.
right? But has your schedule changed at all? Do you have new boundaries around your time or how you spend your energy now? How
Yeah,
have you shifted that?
I am formulating new boundaries.
Yeah.
I think one of the ways I'm formulating new boundaries is that I'm like being very open and honest about what my experience is, so that more people understand that, like, hey, like, yeah, I can do that, but if I push myself to a breaking point, it's not particularly helpful to you or to anyone else.
Hmm.
So that's one thing. Two, I'm trying hard to not be out as many evenings as maybe I used to be. I think that is one of the trappings of this job is there are two or three events a night that I could be out to, and that gets exhausting. It takes away from my own personal time. It takes away from time with family, and it just takes an additional toll. So, since the month I've been back, I've been trying to keep it to 1 or 2 nights a week, being out and keeping those engagements as short as I possibly can.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I think I am doing for myself in terms of change of routine is just really focusing on staying active. That was just one of the greatest things about being off is I actually had time to be outside, moving, hiking, mountain biking, doing the things that I love to do. And what I found is it's like deeply therapeutic for me, and forcing myself, creating the conditions for myself to continue to stay like really active, not like kind of sort of active. I'm going to go to the gym once a week, but like really pushing myself to spend time on my physical health as well has been really important. And now as we watch the snowfall outside, it's going to be the really most important thing that I focus on over the course of the next couple months.
Yeah. And it's gives you another like way to channel your high performance, right? And maybe your competitiveness, even though you're competing with yourself when you're kind of working towards something. Over the last year, I've definitely prioritized my fitness life more. And I've seen all the other areas of my life benefit because of it. And it's really not because I feel better, but also I feel more confident and grounded and
Mhm.
empowered. What does your daily routine look like now? What are you doing for training? Do you like to run? Do you like to lift?
Yeah, so I'm not a big gym. I'm not a big gym person. I primarily like my goal is to be outside, moving. Like that is where I'm at the happiest when I'm out in the woods somewhere, peace and quiet and nature. So I do a lot of hiking. I think since I started taking my time off in the end of June, I've hiked or climbed almost 100,000 feet. Like I've been hyper active. A lot of time on my bike, hundreds of miles, and it feels great. I mean, I legitimately, like physically, I feel 10 years younger than I did before I took my time off, just because I've reestablished that sort of practice of being active on a regular basis. The last couple of weekends I've been out at Green Lakes or Clark's Reservation, just somewhere getting a trail run in or going for a hike. But my happy place is up in the Adirondacks. That's where my stress levels are the lowest, and that could be hiking, it could be snowshoeing, it could be kayaking, skiing, which I'm looking forward to here in a couple of weeks. So
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's on the winter menu then?
yeah,
Lots of
definitely
skiing.
skiing.
Snowshoeing's great.
My son's 13 and he's into skiing, and so that's something that we'll do together, and that's really fun. And then I love to snowshoe and I love to winter hike, and so I have a plan to do a couple high peaks in the winter this year, which is I've only done one in the wintertime before, so it'll be a little bit of a different experience. But I'm really looking forward to getting out and having those big adventures in the fluffy white snow.
In the fluffy white snow. Love that. I mean, what better place to be, right? We
Exactly.
have all the seasons, all the outdoor activities. In your post, you had mentioned creating a new game plan for how you plan to win in this next phase. So how has winning shifted for you? And also how do you plan on winning moving forward?
I mean, I think that what has shifted maybe more than anything is just the perspective of balance, right? That winning some site selection at work while you're falling apart physically and mentally, like, is not actually winning, right? And I think so it's a reframing of what winning looks like to include, my physical health, my mental health, the well-being of the people around me. And so I try to keep that like top of mind, as I go forward. I think from a work standpoint, it also one of the amazing things, opportunities that was afforded to me from being gone was you see how your team members perform, and when they have an opportunity to step up and provide more leadership. And I've been very like hyper conscious since I came back about the fact that people stepped up. They did a phenomenal job. And the last thing I want to do coming back into the role is to like take responsibility back from them. And so I'm spending a lot of time right now thinking about like, okay, in this environment where our leaders and our team members are more empowered than they ever have been because they all had to step up, instead of me dropping back down into the work, what's the layer of work that exists up, at the highest strategic level that I can perform, that it offers real value add to the leadership that the team is driving. And so that's really what I'm thinking about on a go forward basis, which is almost more as a support system, for the rest of the organization and the leaders in it, than seeing myself as the person driving the bus. Like I think we've always had a culture at Center State of having really great individual contributors and trying to put them out front and allow them to be the issue experts, whether it's in our innovation space or workforce space or economic development. And I think now more than ever, I see it as my job to just help resource that work and create a strategic framework to continue to drive engagement from our business leaders and our elected officials to support all of that.
This episode of Cultivate CNY is brought to you by, well, no one yet. But that's about to change. After 2 years of incredible conversations with Central New York's most inspiring leaders, we are officially opening the door to sponsors. That's right. If you'd like to support the show and get your brand in front of a loyal and growing audience, email us at podcast@cnywomensnetwork.com to learn more about sponsorship opportunities. All right, back to the show. One of the major things that you guys were working on this year was the INSPYRE Innovation Hub. which I was so excited about when I saw the big kind of rebrand campaign and everything looks amazing. Everything sounds amazing. How have you guys expanded upon, the former Tech Garden services and also the people that you serve?
I am so excited. This was literally like the first thing I did when I got back to Syracuse on my first day back. I sat down with Ben Sayo, who is our interim CEO, and we chatted for about an hour and a half, just going over the headlines like, here are the things you missed. Here are the big things that are on our plate. Here's what's coming over the course of the next week or month. And then we walked over, and it was my first chance to go through the INSPYRE Innovation Hub since it had been finished. I wasn't there for the groundbreaking, right? Or for the ribbon cutting, I should say. And man, it was just such a beautiful experience to be able to walk through and see this building finished, knowing how hard so many people had worked on it for, I think over 9 years from the time we first had the idea of maybe trying to expand the building, all the fundraising and all the design and all the programming. So it's really, I'm so proud of that facility. The feedback I've been getting on it has been incredible. The rebrand is something that, talk about a leap of faith. We were well into the construction period before we decided we wanted to rebrand, right? This wasn't something that was on the plate when we necessarily first started working on the project. And it really came from a place of recognizing that the mission of the former Tech Garden was more narrow than the programming at CenterState had evolved to be. When that building first opened, it was really for tech and software startups in a very narrow space. And the reality is that CenterState works with small businesses across the entire spectrum, work with businesses who are in food service and who are sole proprietorships, all the way up through companies that are looking to grow and scale. And when we looked at our portfolio of companies that we were actively working with, and we tried to think about fitting all of the support services into the old Tech Garden model, it didn't work. And there was an aspirational element that felt like it was important for us to communicate, and that is this sense of perpetual inspiration and pushing ourselves to be bigger and better. And so I'm really proud of how that has gone off. I remember the first time I told our executive committee that we were going to rebrand the Tech Garden, and there were a lot of quiet stares. And it was all very supportive, right? It wasn't pushback, but it was like, are you sure about that? And the reality was, at that point, when I shared that with them, we hadn't landed where we wanted to land. We'd been spent about 3 months thinking about the rebrand and trying to push it forward, but we hadn't landed the plane yet. And so it was a little scary. It was like one of those moments where you're like, all right, we're committing to this. Like, we're going to put it out there into the world that we're doing this. And within 48 hours, it clicked. And our team was meeting, and we landed on the INSPYRE Innovation Hub. And instantly we knew that was the message we wanted to send for our community. It was the beacon sort of pulsing, saying like, yeah, this is the future of Syracuse, is really wrapped around our ability to think creatively and to encourage people in our community to always be striving for something better. And that was really the unlock. It was awesome. I had a member about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago that I ran into, who one of our sponsors in the new Innovation Hub, and he said to me, I ran into him at breakfast, and he said, when I saw the rebrand, the INSPYRE, I was like, oh, I really like that. And then my second thought was like, oh man, that's a really tough brand proposition to live up to. And I was like, huh, yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I hadn't thought about that. That doesn't scare me at all. And he's like, yeah, but you guys nailed it. He's like, you totally delivered on that promise and more. And honestly, that was the best compliment that I could have gotten, knowing how difficult and how stressful it was to change something that has added so much value to the community over 20 years, right? A very well-known brand at the Tech Garden. And now our task is to make sure we consistently live up to it.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And I love the approach. I mean, first and foremost, I think this is the time to develop and create a space like Inspire, right? With all the growth that we're experiencing here, but more so, I love just the inspiration to, or the aspiration to be more creative, be innovative, be entrepreneurial. Like I'm all for, even though I mean a lot of people now, especially young people, are side hustling and starting something on the side on top of their 9 to
Yeah.
5. And I just think that that is so relatable. And I've always admired the tech garden and what it did for tech startups. And I've always wished that I had my $1 million idea of developing an app and I could have been one of
Yeah,
your
you and me
your
both.
startups, right? But I was when I saw the rebrand and I saw that you guys were like, no, this is just about innovation. This is about entrepreneurship. And that looks different from person to person.
Absolutely.
So I was refreshed and excited to see that. Who are some of your clients now? I know that you guys have been moving people into offices and it's up and going now.
It's amazing when you think about it, in a post-COVID world. There are people who are still struggling with office vacancy. That's a thing around in cities around the country. It's still a thing to a lesser extent here in Syracuse. But we opened the building at 90+% occupancy, which is incredible. I mean, the real interest and demand from our entrepreneurs in being in there. Part of the reason I think for that is as we were in the planning phase for thinking about the programming in the new building, I won't take any credit for this. It was our team who came up with the idea that we need to earn the commute, right? People are more comfortable staying home or, working remotely. How do we make it supremely valuable and desirable for them to be physically in the building as often as possible? And that comes obviously from the functionality of the space, the aesthetic of the space, the beautiful outdoor patio that has a view up the hill and the Kraus clock tower. But it also comes from the programming and our ability to create a larger mentor network to support entrepreneurs. One of the things we're testing out right now is a fractional C-suite program where we can have a chief revenue officer or a chief HR person or a CFO who can drop in and support companies who maybe aren't ready for a full-time, senior leader like that, but who need someone who's been through this before to help them through this next phase of growing and scaling. And it's so far, we're only a month into it since we opened the building, but so far it's been working out great. We've been getting a lot of really awesome feedback. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I think is just so fun, we've already hosted, we've had 2 or 3, maybe 4 engagements with students at the new STEAM school, right? Which is literally right down the street. You can see the school from the patio in INSPYRE. And we have students from the city, students from the county, who are learning about these industries of the future, and they're getting a chance to come over and see entrepreneurs and talk to people who have taken a risk to start their own business. And the thank you letters and the notes we're getting from 9th grade kids is awesome, right? It's just so affirming and gives me a lot of hope for the future in this town. That was always a part of our vision for Inspire, and it's just great to see it coming to fruition.
Yeah, I'm excited for all of the events that are to come. You guys have some really awesome event spaces too, and just like the co-working opportunities. We've been talking to someone from your team about hosting a co-working meetup
Awesome.
at the Inspire Hub, and so I'm excited to get in there. I actually still have not been
Oh
inside
my
yet.
gosh, go over,
I
knock
know
on the
I missed
door,
the open
walk
house.
through.
I have to go. But you do have some awesome people on that team. I met with Kara a few months back. You can really tell how much you want this space to be for everybody and to really get everybody behind it and involved. So I just can't wait to see what comes of it and what companies, come out of this. And just the future of Central New York being a place where entrepreneurs can go and they can get the support they need and they can have the community that they're looking for. And it's not all in Silicon Valley and it's not all in these large cities. It can be here in Syracuse too.
Yeah, and they can be celebrated. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I really love about that building, and I try to speak to this as often as I can. But we have a community that has chosen to take a significant part of its community leadership energy and build not only a facility like Inspire, but a set of programming that is designed to support our entrepreneurs of all stripes and really focus on that as part of our intentional economic development strategy. When I came back to Syracuse in 2003, there was no innovation ecosystem. There were a handful of organizations doing little things here or there to support, some subset of entrepreneurs or innovators. But there wasn't an ecosystem. And today it's not only INSPYRE, but we have so many other partners, what Syracuse University is doing, and Lemoyne with the Keenan Center, and Upstate with the Biotech Accelerator, and the Southside Innovation Center, and WISE. And like, how many like groups do we now have in this community that are all in some way, shape, or form supporting this critically important demographic of people, folks who are building the future companies for Central New York? And I don't often get pushback on our innovation strategy, but when I do, I just remind people like it's math, right? Successful communities start more businesses than they fail. And if we don't have mechanisms to encourage people to
Mhm.
start businesses, right? Inspire them to start businesses and then support them along the way, then why should we believe that we're going to come out on the positive side of that equation? When we weren't doing anything to support entrepreneurs, we were way underwater. We were losing more companies than we were starting. And today that has flipped. And we got to keep it flipped for a long period of time. And that's going to be the engine, one of the critical engines for the Central New York economy going forward.
What have you noticed most since opening Inspire and seeing all this feedback? I'm sure. Like, what are entrepreneurs in Central New York looking for right now?
Oh man, that's a really tough question to answer because entrepreneurs are coming at us from every stage, right? From people who have an idea, who are just like, I have this idea and I can't get it out of my head and I'm trying to figure out if there's a business there, right? They need a certain thing versus like some of the companies that we have in the building. I think of a company like Resilience, which is one of our drone and unmanned systems companies that's in the building, a former Genius New York company that has been slowly building itself into an industry recognized leader, and now at a point where they're winning contracts in other states and able to hire more people and able to grow and scale. And so I think therein lies the challenge. Like if I ever get pushback from some of our stakeholders on Inspire, it's like, hey, how can you resource the broad range of supports that all of these companies, depending on where they are in their journey, are going to need? And I think the message that I try to deliver is like, we don't have to do all those things, but our ecosystem needs to have all of those things. So we need to have partners across that we can pull in, venture capital partners that can help have a conversation with a founder about like, hey, if you're interested in taking venture capital, here's what it really means. Here are the benefits. Here are the downsides. Here are the kinds of terms you'd be thinking about. Um, just education and a sense of community, because I have never been an entrepreneur in that traditional sense. I do consider myself to be highly entrepreneurial, but how scary and lonely must that feel sometimes to go out there and literally choose to make your livelihood or a part of it like completely dependent on you and your ability to hustle and your ability to execute and your ability to outcompete the person that you're competing with. And those people, those risk takers deserve a sense of community and a support ecosystem because they are the economic engine for our entire region.
I 100% agree. And I love that. And, you know, also, like, if you have a vision and, for me personally, being from Central New York and always being highly entrepreneurial and always knowing that I wanted to build something, earlier on in my previous business, I found it very hard to just find people to relate to. And not only people to relate to, but people that were like hustling the same way that I was and maybe even hustling a little bit harder. And I felt like I didn't have a goalpost in my life in terms of the people that I was around, right? And I realized very quickly and early on that if I'm ever gonna be this powerhouse woman CEO that I have visualized, I'm gonna have to find those people myself and get close to them because
Yeah.
sometimes you just don't know what's possible until you have someone in your circle or your network that you get to look at and you get to hear their story and say, you know what, if they can do it, I can do it too.
Totally, that resonates. And I think also like a group of people who are going to believe in you, right?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes it's as simple as that, just
That's
having
huge.
someone believe in you. I mean, I was very fortunate as a kid. Like I had parents who were like deeply invested in whatever it was I wanted to do for myself and who had this supreme faith and confidence and instilled that in me from a very early age. Like, hey, you can go out and do basically anything that you want to do. And it's those little sometimes intangible elements associated with that experience, the entrepreneurial experience, but also I think it translates more broadly to the Central New York community. I mean, it's part of what I love about this place is that it's small enough that you can get to just about anybody with one phone call or an email, right? There aren't too many people in this town who aren't accessible, right? There's a couple, but for the most part, like you can get to anybody. And I
Hmm.
and I love that. And I loved that when I was a young kid. When I moved back here, I think I was 26 or 27, and I had the experience of having lunches and coffees with people who were presidents of regional banks and CEOs. And like most kids my age at that point, like don't get that. And here we are 20 years later, and I feel like this community is still that way. It's still very human and
Hmm.
relationship driven. And I think that's awesome.
Me too. And I've always said something very similar to that. And another thing I like about this city is that because we are smaller, I think there's just so much more room to innovate. And so when you do have a good idea and you do reach out to that person that you've never connected with but you would love to, you know, I personally haven't heard no too many times, and I'm super grateful for that because I know if I were in New York City, I would be just like every other young, ambitious woman that wants to build a media company, you know what I mean? But, um, the leaders in this community are excited to see things happening, and I haven't been met with too much resistance, and I'm super grateful for that, but last but not least, my favorite thing about Syracuse is that you're there's 2 degrees of separation, not even, and there's nowhere to hide. So, I feel like our values here are great, and, there's very little tolerance for bad people, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so if you do want to be unethical or just not be a good person, you're not gonna get away with that here.
Yeah.
And
Totally agree.
I really like that accountability and that kind of peace, honestly, because I don't feel like I have to have my guard up. I don't feel like I feel like I usually err on the side of, trusting people pretty easily and thinking everyone's a good person, everyone has good intentions. But here, I haven't been proven wrong yet. I'm sure eventually I might get burned, but don't we
Let's hope
all?
not.
Don't we all? Let's hope
Yeah,
let's hope not.
yeah.
That's life, but yeah, that's another thing about Central New York that I really like.
This place is amazing. It has a quality about it that I think is only getting my perspective is only getting more rich the longer I've been here and the more this community starts to find its footing, right? Economically, socially, demographically. This is a community on the rebound. I don't think we can underestimate the psychological impact that 60, 70, 80 years of socioeconomic decline has on a place and the people who call that place home. And now we're at a point where we're seeing that narrative turn. 2025 has been the most robust year of job growth in Central New York since 1990, right? 35 years. And with that newfound energy, there's still the Central New York skepticism. It's still there, but it's not as sharp as it used to be. It's not coming from as many voices, nowhere near as loud, right? Now, when I see a skeptical comment in one of my LinkedIn posts, like it's the exception, not the norm. Used to be the opposite. Used to be everybody was skeptical. Um, and and as the community is finding that footing, I feel like people are actually like warming up. It's almost like coming outside for the first day of spring. It's like, oh, all right, it's been a long winter, but there's a lot to be excited about. Let me go out and smell the flowers and the fresh air and the grass. And the metaphorical experience that I feel like Central New York is in the middle of right now. It's a beautiful thing to watch, and I'm really excited for what comes next.
Yeah, and you know what? It sounds like a very similar experience that you just had for yourself during
Yeah,
this time off.
very very much so.
What's coming up in 2026? How can people get involved with CenterState CEO, with Inspire? Where can they go?
Yeah, so check out our website, CenterStateCEO.com. There's links to the INSPYRE Innovation Hub. We have an intake form for anyone who's looking to get involved, either as a mentor or an entrepreneur or who wants to do an intake meeting. Check that out. Feel free to reach out. We have an awesome team down there with CenterState. We're in a great spot. We're seeing more engagement from the business community than we've seen in a really long time. Membership is growing, but also we're working really hard to try to focus on ways that individuals and companies can not only get involved, to support their business, network, and get access and connections, but also how they can give back and contribute to the moment, whether that's leaning into a workforce development program like OnRamp, or whether that is, getting involved in a housing task force to help think through the challenges that we have in Syracuse as we grow, right? How do we make sure we have enough housing for people who live here and the people who want to live here? So lots of opportunities abound. 2026 is going to be, I think, a fast and frenetic year. We will see the start of construction on Micron's project up in Clay, which is pretty remarkable. I know it's been a long time coming and people are excited and some people are still skeptical, but before the end of this year, we'll see tree clearing on the site, and starting in first or second quarter, we'll see construction activities start. And when that happens, thousands of construction workers are going to descend on this community. Small businesses are going to have huge opportunities to do even better. I think little coffee shops and sandwich shops and whatnot. And it's going to be the start of what I think will be a period of 10 to 20 years of pretty robust growth that we have not had that level of predictability and certainty in this community about the future for a long time. And listen, there'll be bumps along the road. There always are. But I think 2026 is the start of something beautiful for Central New York.
Fast and frenetic. I like that. Thank you so much, Rob, for your time today. And I'm sure so many people are so glad to have you back, but I'm also so glad you took that time for yourself. And I can't wait to see what happens in 2026.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be back, and I'm really proud of you for sticking with your vision, seeing this through, and putting yourself out there. It's not easy, but it's obvious that you're enjoying it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Rob. Whether this is your first time tuning in or you've been listening since the beginning, I do not take it for granted. When I started this podcast, I honestly didn't know where it would go. I just knew that I wanted to have real conversations with people doing meaningful work right here in Central New York. 2 years in, this still feels like a dream, but I also know that we are just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please join the 32% of people who tune into the show regularly and follow us on this app. And here's my promise to you. I'll keep showing up with my whole heart. I'll keep inviting guests who inspire me and asking the questions that I know matter most to people like us. People building something right here in CNY. So thank you for being a part of this.